Most of us didn't know an awful lot about cladding on buildings, high-rise buildings, blocks of flats, offices, hotels, until the Grenfell fire in 2017, when it was very quickly highlighted as being a potential factor in why the fire at Grenfell Tower spread so quickly. The Royal Berkshire Fire and Rescue Service has confirmed to us recently that 2 high-rise hotels have cladding in our area, which fails to meet building regs. The fire service didn't name them, but they did say that the cladding, which we previously told you about on the Premier Inn Hotel in Maidenhead, has been sorted. What about other buildings in our area? Back in March, the fire service reported that 3 residential buildings in Reading had Grenfell-style cladding, although building owners were planning on getting that all sorted by the end of last year. Today, a woman in Slough tells us that she can't sell her flat because of the type of cladding on the building. She's Priyanka. She's live with me. Morning, Priyanka.
Morning.
So, I mean, it's really interesting this. You see this from the sort of grand prism of the issues that have now been thrown up about building regulations and all of that. Meantime, you just want to sell a flat, right?
Absolutely. So I didn't know a lot about cladding until last year, October, until when we decided to move on from our current home and put it on the market, found a buyer, everything perfect, planning to pack our boxes, and all of a sudden we were told that our house is valued at 0 and we can't sell.
So your house, your flat is worth nothing.
Your flat.
Because
it's worth £0.
no one was going to want to buy it in a building that has cladding that doesn't meet the building regs. It's actually not the same as the cladding on Grenfell Tower, but it is cladding that now wouldn't be put up and needs to be sorted.
Correct, that's correct. So before it was only ACM, which is the Grenfell style cladding, that was an issue. But since then, there's multiple types of cladding that have become an issue. And all of a sudden, your home is valued at 0. The problem is not finding a buyer. The problem is that no buyer will get a mortgage on this type of a property.
Of course, yeah. You know, they have the survey done, and the survey comes back and says, well, I wouldn't buy into this building, not yet. And then you try and get a mortgage, and the mortgage owners say, well, it's too big a risk. And the upshot of all of that is you've got a house or a home that's worth nothing.
Correct, yes.
So what do you then do? You're stuck in it.
You're stuck in it, and besides, selling is one perspective of it, but if you think of it, I've got a little one. I sleep every day in a home that's potentially not safe. If there is an emergency, both in a flat, that's not safe, which is quite distressful to say the least.
Well, I was going to ask you about that, because I suppose before you started down the road of wanting to move, you weren't worried about the safety of the building, and the safety of the building hasn't changed. So in some ways, the safety of living there is the same as it's always been. But how you feel about it has changed because of all the focus there is now on the building regulations.
Well, it seems like that it wasn't safe before either. The only difference was I wasn't made aware of it.
You didn't know about it, yeah.
And once you know about it, it is an issue. We have a waiting watch in place currently, which is 24/7, which is really great. We've got security on site in case if there is a fire to get the residents out. While it is great to have them on site, you're constantly reminded every 15 minutes you hear them walking through the building. That's quite distressful, knowing that someone needs to help you out of the building because we would not have enough time.
Now, we know that your building is owned by one housing group. We've spoken to them. They say there will be work to fix this cladding, but we don't know when it's going to happen, and they don't know how it's going to be paid for, because the government have said cost shouldn't be a barrier to having work carried out. Everyone's working to address all of this, and you can perhaps understand why the building owners are thinking, well, if the government might come along and pay for the cladding to be fixed, then we're not going to immediately go and have that work done ourselves and have to pay for it ourselves. Might be really expensive. There's a sort of chicken and egg thing going on here, as far as I can see.
Correct, absolutely. I mean, for me as a leaseholder, it does not matter, and I think majority of the leaseholders affected feel the same way. It doesn't matter if the government steps in or the freeholder. However, we, as long-term tenants, which we are effectively as a leaseholder, should be taken out of this equation. We've only rented.
Because in the end, you've done nothing. You're just renting a property. You're just trying to move.
100 years, yeah. It seems the simple thing. It was a new build at the time when I bought it. It was a no-brainer. You've got 10-year warranty. It's a new build. You'll be safe. No issues. But yeah, now it is a very big issue, and we're looking at potentially very, very big costs and £10,000 multiples of it to come our way next to the mortgage.
Right. So if you really, really have to move, the cost of doing so is going to be enormous. I suspect what the reality is that you've just got to wait, but you don't really know what you're waiting for or how long that might be.
Correct, absolutely. In the meantime, you're asleep in a building that's not safe, that if there is a fire, will be lit up, similar to Grenfell Tower, which is quite distressful to say the least.
Priyanka, thank you for coming on the show. I'm sorry you're going through this. We'll see what we can do to ask not only the owners of your building, but your MP and Slough Borough Council and everyone who might be able to help you. What are you supposed to do? What would you do if you had to move for some reason?